The night my wife took everything from me didn't look dramatic at all. No shouting, no broken glass, just a quiet Nashville sunset reflecting off the windows of a house I'd built with my own hands. That same house would belong to her by morning. She said I'd understand later. She said it was just paperwork. My name is Glenn Hartman, 42 years old, born and raised in Tennessee. For 15 years, I ran a mid-sized construction company that helped shape half the skyline of this city. I thought I understood foundations, how to make something stand forever. Turns out, I knew nothing about the kind that crumbles from the inside. Laura and I met when we were young and hungry. She was sharp, confident, the kind of woman who could sell an idea before I even drew it on paper. Together, we built homes for others, while ours slowly cracked beneath the weight of success. The more I worked, the less I was home. The less I was home, the more she planned her exit. When the divorce papers came, she looked at me across the polished table in our lawyer's office and said, almost kindly, "You'll thank me one day for making this simple." I didn't thank her. I just signed. I remember the pen dragging across my name, page after page, my signature shrinking each time. She smiled, one of those polite smiles you give a stranger at the grocery store. By the time I realized what I'd done, she owned the company, the mansion, even the truck I used for work. That night, I packed 2 boxes, one of clothes, one of tools, and drove toward downtown Nashville. The old brick buildings looked tired, like me. I rented a room above a diner that smelled of frying oil and loneliness. For weeks, I wandered the city, watching cranes rise over new luxury condos, projects I'd once dreamed of building. And the sounds of hammers and saws followed me like ghosts. Nashville kept moving, and I was just another man walking against the current. People say the city hums with music, but when you've lost everything, that hum sounds like static. I'd sit on park benches at dusk listening to distant guitars and wondering how long it would take before people stopped recognizing my name. One afternoon, I passed by my old construction site. Laura stood there in a white hard hat, surrounded by investors. She laughed like the past never happened. Someone handed her a champagne glass and she raised it toward the building's frame. My design! That was when I realized she hadn't just taken what I owned. She had taken what I was. That night, in the small room where the air conditioner rattled louder than my thoughts, I stared at the ceiling and tried to make peace with the idea that my life had ended at 42. I told myself I'd start over, somehow. I'd find work, stay invisible, survive quietly. Then my phone buzzed. No name, no number. Just one line glowing on the cracked screen. "You should see what she did with the deed." I sat up, the hum of the city suddenly sharper, like every sound was holding its breath. I didn't know who sent it or what they meant, but something in my chest shifted. For the first time in months, I wasn't numb. I looked out the window at the half-lit skyline I'd once helped build. Somewhere out there was my house, my name on a paper I no longer possessed. Maybe that message was nothing. Or maybe, just maybe, it was the first nail in a brand new foundation. After that anonymous text, sleep became a stranger. For nights, I lay awake, replaying the words, "You should see what she did with the deed." They echoed louder than the freight trains that passed outside my window. I didn't know whether to be angry, hopeful, or scared. I only knew I couldn't keep drifting. The next morning, I walked the streets until I found a help wanted sign taped to a cracked glass door. Cumberland Apartments. Maintenance position available. The building was older than most people in it. Its bricks were dark with rain, its hallways narrow, the kind of place where time whispered through the pipes. It needed a caretaker, and maybe I needed to care for something again. Inside the lobby stood an older man in a gray vest and a smile that seemed to belong to another era. "Name's Harold," he said, extending a calloused hand. "Been here 30 years. You look like you can handle a wrench."
"I can handle almost anything that doesn't talk back," I replied. He chuckled. "Then you'll fit right in." And just like that, Glenn Hartman, former contractor, became a janitor in downtown Nashville. The first few weeks were quiet. My days started before sunrise, mopping marble floors worn smooth by generations of tenants, changing bulbs, fixing leaky faucets. I liked the rhythm. No board meetings, no signatures, no lies. Each creak in the building felt honest. Harold would meet me in the mornings with a thermos of coffee. We'd sit on the front steps watching buses hiss by. He'd talk about his late wife, how she'd loved the sound of church bells on Sunday. I rarely answered, but he didn't mind. "You've got that look," he said, tapping the side of his head. "Man carrying a story too heavy to tell. But don't worry, buildings like this, they listen. You fix them, they fix you." Maybe he was right. Maybe I needed something old and broken to mirror myself. Every evening, as I polished the brass elevator doors, I caught my reflection. A man stripped of title and pride, but somehow lighter. I'd begun to think that anonymity was my punishment and my freedom. Then came the day I was cleaning the basement. The place smelled of dust and oil, the air thick with years of forgotten repairs. I pushed aside a rusted cabinet to reach the fuse box, and a cardboard folder slid out, scattering yellowed papers across the floor. Among them was an old black-and-white photograph. A man standing proudly in front of a newly finished house. My house. The same stone columns, the same arched doorway. But what froze me was the handwriting on the back. "Built for my son, Glenn Hartman, 1995. My father's signature clear as daylight. For a long minute, I couldn't move. I hadn't seen his handwriting since the funeral. My father had taught me everything about construction. Measure twice, cut once, never compromise on integrity. Seeing his words again felt like he'd reached through time to remind me who I was. I took the photo upstairs to Harold, his brow furrowed as he studied it. "That your place?" "It was," I said quietly. He handed it back with a nod. "Funny how truth hides in basements. Maybe you were meant to find that." His words lingered. That night, as rain tapped against the old windows, I placed the photo on the small nightstand beside my bed. The image glowed faintly under the streetlight seeping through the blinds. For the first time since the divorce, I whispered out loud, "Thanks, Dad." Somewhere deep in the building, a pipe groaned and settled, like the place was answering. I didn't know it yet, but that single photograph, buried under years of dust, had just drawn the first line connecting my past to something still waiting to be unearthed.
I first saw Emily on a Tuesday night, the kind of evening Nashville wears like an old coat. Humid air, flickering streetlights, the distant hum of a guitar someone played badly. She came through the front door of the Cumberland Apartments with her hair tied back, a nurse's badge clipped to her scrubs, and exhaustion written across her face. "Evening," I said, holding the door open as she balanced 2 grocery bags and a child's backpack. She smiled, polite but weary. "Thanks. You must be the new maintenance guy. Harold said you actually fix things around here." "Depends what's broken," I answered. "Everything," she said, and for the first time that day, we both laughed. She lived on the 3rd floor, apartment 3B, with her 11-year-old daughter, Lily. Their place always smelled faintly of cinnamon and laundry soap. I'd pass by sometimes and hear music, old soul songs, the kind you hum without knowing why. For weeks, our exchanges stayed brief. Small smiles, a good morning nod, sometimes a cup of coffee left on the lobby counter with a note that said, "Thanks for fixing the faucet." She called me the Quiet Fixer. I didn't mind the nickname. It felt safer than being Glenn Hartman, the man who once owned half the skyline and lost it all. Harold, of course, noticed. "That nurse has got light in her eyes," he said one morning, elbowing me as we swept the front steps. "You could use some of that." "I'm just the janitor," I said. He gave a dry chuckle. "Funny thing about titles, they don't mean a damn once your heart clock resets." He wasn't wrong. There was something about Emily that made silence comfortable again. One evening, she found me in the basement trying to fix a boiler that hissed like a wounded animal. She held 2 takeout containers. "You eat dinner yet?" "Not since breakfast." "Well, that's practically a crime." She handed me one and sat on an overturned bucket. We ate surrounded by the hum of machinery and the faint drip of water. She told me she worked nights at St. Thomas Hospital, mostly oncology. "Some patients don't make it," she said, eyes lowering. "But the ones who do, they remind you why you keep going." I wanted to tell her I understood, that I'd watched something I built die too, but the words caught in my throat. Instead, I said, "Sounds like you're the one keeping them going." She smiled, soft and genuine. "You've got a way of saying things that sound simple, but aren't." That night, after she left, I stayed in the boiler room longer than I needed to, letting the echo of her voice settle into the walls. A few days later, trouble found its way back into her life. I was polishing the lobby railings when a man in a leather jacket barged in, yelling her name. His eyes were red, his breath sharp with liquor. "I just want to see my daughter," he shouted. Emily stepped out from the stairwell, her hands trembling but steady in her voice. "Not tonight, Mark. Please." The man took a step forward. Instinct moved faster than thought. I stepped between them. "That's enough," I said. He looked me up and down, sneering. "Stay out of it, janitor." I said, "That's enough." For a long second, only the hum of the fluorescent lights filled the space. Then he turned, muttering, and slammed the door behind him. Emily exhaled, shoulders shaking. "Thank you," she whispered. "Just doing my job," I said, though my hands still trembled. When they left, I stood alone in the empty lobby, feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Purpose. Maybe fixing boilers and broken locks wasn't the only kind of repair I was meant for. Later that night, I turned on the small TV in my room. A news anchor was talking about a massive new development project breaking ground in East Nashville. The design looked achingly familiar. At the bottom of the screen, the company's name appeared in gold letters. Hartman & Cole Developments. My company. My design. My legacy. Reborn without me. And there, standing in front of the cameras, smiling beneath the floodlights, was Laura.
The morning after that news broadcast, I turned off the TV and sat in silence, the screen's afterglow fading from the wall. Hartman & Co. Developments. My name's still there, half of it at least, like a ghost that refused to die. I wondered if Laura kept it to mock me or to remind investors that somewhere behind her smile was the man who'd built everything she now claimed. I went to work early just to move, to sweat the anger out. Harold found me scrubbing the marble floor on my knees. "Son, you're trying to clean what ain't dirty," he said. "Maybe I'm the one that's dirty," I muttered. He studied me a moment, then nodded toward the front door. "We got company." An older man stood there, suit a size too big, gray hair slicked back, a briefcase hugged tight against his chest. "Excuse me," he said, scanning the lobby. "I'm looking for a Mr. Glenn Hartman." My hands froze around the mop handle. Hardly anyone used my full name anymore. "That depends who's asking." "My name's Charles Benton. I was your father's attorney. We worked together years ago." The sound of father's attorney made something shift inside me, like a door I'd nailed shut, coming loose. "I'm not sure what this is about," I said. He opened the briefcase and set a small, dust-covered box on the counter. "Your father left this in our firm's archives. It was marked to be delivered only to Glenn Hartman. Took me years to track you down. I didn't know there was anything left to deliver. Sometimes the past waits until we're ready to listen." Harold, pretending not to eavesdrop, polished the doorknob within earshot. Mr. Benton patted the box. "I should warn you, what's inside might change how you see things. Your father was careful about certain matters." "Careful how?" He gave a tired smile. "Let's just say he understood people better than they realized." When he left, the lobby fell quiet again. The box sat there like a heartbeat. Harold leaned on the desk. "You gonna open it?" "Not yet." "Why?" "Because nothing good ever came from surprises lately." He nodded, wise enough not to push. "Sometimes what's buried is what saves you, Glenn. Remember that." All day, the box followed me in my thoughts. I carried it up to my small room and set it on the table beside the photograph of my father and me, the one from the day we broke ground on the mansion. Same proud smile, same weathered hands. Outside, thunder rolled over Nashville. The rain came down hard, streaking the window. I sat there staring at the box until the storm's rhythm matched my pulse. Finally, I lifted the lid. Inside were a few papers tied with twine, a brass key, and a sealed envelope yellowed with age. The handwriting on the front stopped my breath. "Property of Glenn Hartman." Underneath, my father's initials. I untied the twine, my fingers shaking. The first document was a property deed, our mansion's legal title, bearing his signature, not mine, dated years before the company existed. My father had registered the house solely under my name. For a long time, I just stared at it, the truth hitting me in waves. All those years, I'd believed I'd signed it away to Laura, but if this document was valid, she'd never owned it. The rain outside turned to wind, rattling the window panes like applause or warning. I couldn't tell which one. I reached for my phone, my reflection flickering in the glass. I could almost hear my father's voice. "Measured twice, cut once, son." Maybe he'd measured everything, even this moment. Downstairs, the elevator bell dinged, pulling me back. Harold's voice echoed faintly up the stairwell. "Everything all right, Glenn?" I looked at the deed one last time. "No," I whispered to myself, "but it might be."
For the rest of that night, I couldn't stop staring at the deed. The rain had faded into a slow, steady drizzle, but inside me, it still poured. The paper was real, aged but intact, stamped, signed, sealed. Property of Glenn Hartman. If this was true, then Laura's claim on the mansion was a lie. By morning, I'd made up my mind. I tucked the deed into a worn folder and walked to the address printed on the corner of the letterhead. Benton and Rowe Attorneys, Nashville. Charles Benton looked surprised when I stepped into his office. "Mr. Hartman," he said, rising from his chair, "I was half expecting you." "Is this legitimate?" I asked, placing the deed on his desk. "Tell me it's real."
He adjusted his glasses and studied it for a long moment, tracing the embossed seal with a fingertip. "Not just real," he said finally. "It's ironclad. Your father filed this under a protective trust, one your wife could never touch without your direct consent." I felt the air leave my lungs. "Then how did she—" "She didn't," he interrupted gently. "She forged her way through. These other signatures, see the pressure marks? Different hand entirely. I'd say she scanned your signature from earlier contracts and used it to transfer the deed into her name." The room tilted slightly, the way it does when truth hits harder than a fist. "She forged everything," I whispered. "Yes, and she'll keep getting away with it, unless you stop her." I sank into the chair. "I don't want revenge, Mr. Benton. I just want peace." He smiled faintly. "Peace doesn't come free, son. Sometimes you have to earn it back." When I left his office, the sun had returned, but it didn't feel warm. Nashville shimmered like a mirage, full of people hurrying to places that still meant something. I walked for blocks before realizing my hands were shaking. That evening I sat in the maintenance room, surrounded by the smell of oil and dust, the deed resting on my lap. Harold came by holding 2 paper cups of coffee. "You look like a man who just dug up a ghost." "I might have," I said quietly, handing him the document. He studied it with squinted eyes. "So it's yours all along, huh?" "Looks like it." "And she stole it?" "Looks like that too." He nodded slowly, then set his coffee down. "Then you know what comes next. I don't want a fight. Glenn, you can't rebuild peace on stolen ground." His words sat heavy in the air. That night I barely slept. Emily noticed the next morning when I fixed a light in her hallway. "You look like you've seen a ghost." Something like that. "You want to talk about it?" I wanted to, but I didn't. She had enough burdens of her own. Instead, I just said, "Sometimes life hands you proof you never wanted." She gave a small nod, understanding more than I said. Later, in the quiet of my room, I pulled out a blank sheet of paper and wrote down every date, every document, every time Laura had asked me to sign something. The list stretched longer than I expected. I sent it all to Charles Benton that night. 2 days later, he called. "It's ready. The lawsuit. We'll file first thing in the morning." "Are you sure we'll win?" He hesitated. "I'm sure the truth is on your side." "That's not always the same thing, but it's a start." I ended the call and stared out the window at the neon sign flickering across the street. The city lights blurred into streaks like time trying to erase me. Laura would receive the court notice by noon tomorrow. And for the first time in a long while, I wasn't afraid. She thought I'd disappeared. She thought she'd buried me under paperwork and silence. But she was about to learn something she'd forgotten long ago. You can't destroy a man who still knows how to build. The morning of the hearing, Nashville felt colder than usual. The courthouse stood like a monument to second chances and broken promises. I arrived early, hands in my pockets. The old suit Harold had pressed for me barely fitting. He'd called it armor, and I tried to believe him. Inside, Laura was already there. Confident, radiant, untouched by guilt. She wore the same perfume she used to wear to investor meetings, the kind that lingered in rooms long after she left. Her new attorney, a man half my age, leaned close and whispered something that made her laugh. When she finally saw me, her smile froze into something colder. "You think a janitor can win this?" she said quietly, just for me. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The judge entered, and the room fell still. My lawyer, Charles Benton, began with calm precision, presenting the documents, the deed, my father's trust,
the forgery evidence. Laura's side countered with confidence and charm, claiming I'd willingly signed everything in the spirit of reconciliation. When they projected the signatures onto the screen, Benton pointed to the faint alignment marks, perfect scans from old contracts. The courtroom murmured. Laura looked at me, her eyes narrowing, searching for fear. I didn't give her any. As the testimony went on, her mask began to slip. Every objection, every half-truth made her voice tremble a little more. But she was good. She always was. She knew how to twist pain into persuasion. Then came her turn on the stand. Mr. Hartman was unstable after our separation. He signed documents without understanding them. He's trying to rewrite history. The judge's gaze shifted to me. Mr. Hartman, do you wish to respond? I rose slowly, feeling Harold's words echo in my chest. You're fighting for more than a house. You're fighting for who you were. I built that home, brick by brick. My father designed it for me before he died. My wife stood beside me when I signed every honest paper. But these, I held up the forged pages, these weren't honest, and she knows it. For a moment, no one moved. Even Laura's lawyer lowered his pen. The judge nodded slightly, signaling for me to sit. When court adjourned for the day, Benton whispered, "We did what we needed. The decision comes in 48 hours." Outside, the air tasted like rust and rain. Harold was waiting near the steps, a folded newspaper under his arm. "You held your ground, son." "I don't feel like I won anything." "You will," he smiled. "You just can't see it yet." That evening, I walked back to the building, exhausted but strangely calm. In the dim lobby light, I saw Emily pacing, phone in hand. Her eyes widened when she saw me. "Glenn, I didn't know where you were. Mark showed up again." Her voice cracked on the last word. "What happened?" "He tried to take Lily, said I was keeping him from her. I called the police. They came just in time." I felt the blood rush to my ears. "Is she okay?" "She's asleep upstairs now, but I can't keep living like this." I placed a hand on her shoulder, steady but gentle. "You won't have to. Not anymore." She looked at me, searching my face. "Why do you say that?" "Because some fights," I said softly, "are finally ending." She didn't know I was talking about more than one battle. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, the hum of the old pipes above me. I thought of my father's voice, Harold's patience, Emily's strength. 3 people who didn't owe me anything but gave me pieces of myself back. Somewhere out there, Laura was still convincing herself she'd win again. But this time, the foundation she stood on wasn't hers to keep. And in 48 hours, she'd learn what happens when a builder takes back what was built for him.
48 hours never felt so long. Every sound in the building seemed louder. The groan of the elevator, the rattle of pipes, Harold's radio playing some old country tune about second chances. I tried to fix a flickering hallway light, but the screwdriver shook in my hand. Harold noticed. "You'll burn a hole through that wall if you keep staring at it." "Just keeping busy," I muttered. He poured 2 cups of coffee and handed me one. "You did your part. Let the truth finish the rest." The next morning, the courthouse steps were slick with dew. I watched people hurry past, lawyers, clerks, couples holding hands, life moving on, unaware that someone's world was about to tilt. Laura arrived fashionably late, as always, her hair perfect, her heels sharp enough to cut glass. She glanced at me with the confidence of someone who had never really been told no. The judge entered, papers in hand. No one breathed. In the matter of Hartman versus Hartman, the court finds substantial evidence of document falsification. The property known as 412 Westfield Drive is hereby declared the sole legal possession of Mr. Glenn Hartman. It took a moment for the words to land. When they did, I exhaled like a man surfacing after years underwater. Laura's head snapped toward me. "You can't be serious," she said, standing. "He's nothing. He's a janitor." The judge's gavel struck once. "He's also the legal owner." The room erupted. Murmurs, shuffling papers, the weight of justice shifting. Laura's attorney whispered for her to sit down, but she was trembling, her polished mask cracking. I stood, buttoned my jacket, and faced her. "Keep everything else," I said quietly. "I just want what's mine." She opened her mouth to speak, but no sound came. For the first time, I saw her unsure of herself. Outside, sunlight spilled through the courthouse columns. Harold was waiting at the bottom of the steps, leaning on his cane. When I reached him, he grinned through watery eyes. "Well, guess the gentleman in disguise finally took his crown back." I laughed softly. "It feels more like a roof than a crown." "Good. Roofs last longer." We rode the bus back to the Cumberland apartments in silence, watching the city roll by. Construction cranes, billboards, people rushing nowhere. Nashville looked different that day. Not newer, just more honest. In the lobby, Harold paused at the desk. "So," he said, clearing his throat, "what happens now?" I smiled. "You're coming with me." He frowned. "To court?" "No," I said. "Home." He blinked. "You don't mean—" "I do. You once told me buildings listen. Well, that house has been waiting long enough to hear a good voice in it again." He didn't answer right away. His eyes welled up, and he just nodded. "Didn't think I'd ever live in a mansion." "You're not. You're living in a home." That evening, we stood outside the old iron gates of Westfield Drive. The grass was overgrown, the windows dusty, but it was still standing, just like me. Harold whistled low. "Looks like she aged about as well as my knees." "Then we'll fix her up together," I said. Inside, the air smelled of dust and wood polish, like time paused mid-breath. I walked through each room, the staircase where I'd carried Laura over the threshold, the hallway where my father's portrait once hung. Everything she'd touched felt foreign now, but the foundation was mine. I stood in the center of the foyer and whispered, "I'm home." My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a text from Emily. "Is everything okay?" I stared at the message for a long time, then typed back, "There's something I need to show you." And as the send button lit up blue, I knew the story wasn't about what I'd lost anymore. It was about what I was finally ready to share.
2 days later, a soft spring wind carried the scent of rain through the city. I stood at the gates of the mansion, my mansion, waiting. The afternoon light hit the windows just right, making them glow like they were finally breathing again. Harold was out front trimming roses that hadn't seen care in years. "You sure she's gummin'?" he asked, wiping his brow. "She said she'd finish her shift at the hospital by 4. He smiled. "Then it's about time this place met some good people." When Emily's car turned the corner, I felt something I hadn't in years. Nerves. She parked by the gate, her daughter Lily peeking curiously from the back seat. Emily stepped out, still in her scrubs, her hair loose from a long day. "You said you had something to show me," she said, half smiling. "You sounded serious." I did. I led them up the stone path, The gates creaked open, vines curling along the iron like time itself was watching. Emily stopped halfway up the walk, her eyes widening. "Glenn, what is this place?" "It's home," I said simply. Inside, the air carried the faint scent of old cedar and rain. Dust motes floated through golden light streaming from tall windows. Lily ran ahead, her laughter echoing off the marble floors. "This is where you used to work?" Emily asked softly. I shook my head. "No, this is where I used to live." She turned toward me, puzzled. "I don't understand." I took a breath. "When we met, you thought I was just a janitor. And I was. At least, that's what life made me for a while. But before that..." I looked around the foyer, the staircase, the walls that had once heard every argument and dream. "Before that, I built this place. Every inch of it. My father designed it, and I spent half my life turning his drawings into stone." Emily stared, speechless. "You mean this was your house?" I said, voice low. "It still is. She tried to take it, but my father made sure she couldn't. I didn't tell you because I needed to know who I was without all of this." Her eyes glistened. "You didn't have to hide." "I did. I needed someone to see me as a man, not as a name on a gate." She looked around again, her expression softening into something warmer, something real. "So, what happens now?" "Well," I said, glancing toward Harold, who was pretending not to eavesdrop from the porch, "I've got more rooms than I know what to do with, and I've got a friend who refuses to retire." Harold chuckled. "You bet I do." Lily came running in, holding a small flower she'd plucked from the garden. "Mr. Glenn, can we stay here for a while?" Emily smiled apologetically, but I knelt down to meet the girl's eyes. "I was hoping you would," I said. Something changed in that moment, small, quiet, but certain. The kind of change that doesn't come with thunder or applause, just peace. We spent the afternoon walking through the rooms, sunlight chasing the dust away. Emily stood by the large bay window watching Lily explore. "You built all this, and yet you seem happiest fixing leaky pipes. Maybe because, when you lose everything, you stop caring about what's big and start seeing what's real." She reached for my hand. "So what's real now, Glenn?" I smiled. "You? Her? This?" Outside, Harold was watering the rose bushes, whistling off-key. The old building downtown, the one I'd spent months caring for, was being demolished that same afternoon. From the balcony, I could see the faint trail of dust rising in the distance. Emily followed my gaze. "That was where you worked, wasn't it?" "Yeah," I said quietly. "Guess it's time to let it go." As the demolition crane swung, a final cloud of dust lifted into the sky, like the past finally exhaling. Emily squeezed my hand, Lily ran into the garden, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like a man rebuilding his life. I felt like a man who had finally found it. Sometimes life takes everything, so it can give you something real.